this retreat is devoted just to spiritual purposes. There is nothing else here. Our retreat houses, we have a men's retreat house and a women's retreat house, and they're used for that purpose only, that people who come here should spend their time for spiritual purposes in whatever way is dictated by their own conscience or by their own spiritual affiliation. But the thing that unites everyone, that makes it a common effort, is that it's devoted to find everyone who comes here is dedicating his or her stay here to the proposition of finding the deepest thing within themselves, that reality which is beyond the physical, beyond the body, beyond the psychological, beyond the mind, and which underpins and underlies everything. This is the purpose of the retreat. Now, as far as today's program is concerned, the basic theme is universal spiritual humanism, a necessary paradigm for our times.
If you had only been with me in Berkeley when we were starting the Peace and Conflict Studies program, you'd realize what a revolution it is that there are actually political scientists now who are studying nonviolence. They laughed me out of countenance when I started that thing, but there's a terrific book called Why Civil Resistance Works, which has now shown that if you compare nonviolent with violent uprisings, the nonviolent ones are twice as effective in 1/3 the time, far less costly in terms of life and treasure. And here's the surprising part to everyone who's not familiar with nonviolent logic, that they lead to greater human freedoms even when they fail, quote unquote, than violent ones do when they succeed. So one level of spiritual force, we're getting into the second level now, is of a direct, rather mysterious communication that takes place from Atman to Atman, soul to soul, even as Swami Vedananda was saying earlier, below the level of mind. And there's a famous mantra in the Katha Upanishad describing the self. It says, Asino duram vrajati, shayano yati sarvashaha. I won't quote the rest of that mantra because I don't understand it. But this much is very clear, that one who has realized the self, even seated in a particular place, exerts an influence far away. Though still, though lying still, he or she moves everything everywhere. And the Isha Upanishad also says the same thing. Though still, it moves everything everywhere. So this is rather clear, and it's perfectly real, and it takes place even today. A Gandhian was visiting the ashram of Ramana Maharshi in Tiruvannamalai in Chennai, near Chennai, and well, it's not too near actually, but it's in Tamil Nadu. And this was frequently the case that for a break, you know, ordinary human beings like us working with Gandhi needed a break every now and then. Gandhi did not. You know, 15 hours a day for 50 years was not a problem for him. But they would need a break. They sometimes went to Tiruvannamalai to be with Ramana Maharshi. As he was leaving, the Maharshi said to him, I hope you've had a good visit. And he said, it's been wonderful, but the Bhagavan could see that there was something bothering him. So he said, you have a question. And somewhat hesitantly, this young Satyagrahi said, you know, Bhagavan, it's been just wonderful here, but you know, there's so much turmoil in the world, and look what's going on. Gandhi is challenging the British Empire. How can you just sit there? And he quietly, very quietly, quite unruffled as you can imagine, he said, what makes you think I'm just sitting here? So the young man said, oh yes, you know, what a fool I am. Ha ha ha. But he had no idea. Years later, as it happened, now this is a story that you also may not know, dozens and dozens of Indian satyagrahis came to the civil rights movement, and many civil rights activists went to India. So he came to the South, and he was at one point invited to the apartment of one of the big activists, and he walked into his apartment, and there, to his utter astonishment, was a picture of Ramana Maharshi on this man's dresser, who was unknown in this country at that time. Well, for that matter, he's still unknown to most of us. But instantly, this young man understood that he was having some kind of tremendous spiritual influence, even by not being active. Now, I have a theory. This is what professors do. They have theories. I have a theory that the 4 ashramas in traditional Hindu society actually reflect this reality, that in the first stage of life, you're a learner, brahmachari, and then you help society by creating its physical institutions. You get married, have a family, participate in society in that way. In the third stage, parivrajaka, you are a renunciate, but you're visible. You go from place to place, maybe begging for alms. People can see your Garawak cloth, and they know that it's possible for a human being to renounce, and they're very inspired by that. In the last stage, vanaprastha, you're not even visible. You're living somewhere in the forest, and yet, as the Upanishads say, you are influencing the world from there. India as a whole recognized Gandhi for what he was. Now, just imagine, if you could take this spiritual influence that I've referred to, however inadequately, and so there you, just by being seated in a deep state of meditation, you can influence others, you can influence the world. Imagine if you decided to go out and influence the world actively as well, without sacrificing that spiritual groundedness, and you have, well, I would say, watch out. Because there you have Gandhi working for 50 years, 7 days a week, 15 hours a day. 2 secretaries were driven practically to exhaustion by his activities. One of them wrote a little ditty that went, "To live with a saint in heaven is a matter of bliss and glory. To live with one on earth is quite another story." Now, with all of this, with all this impact that you have on individuals, I also want to stress the tremendous impact that Gandhiji has had on history. After all, I would not be here talking with you today. You would not be here listening to me if it weren't for him. Quite apart from liberating India, which everybody thinks was his greatest accomplishment, he actually said, "I'm using India. I am using India as an ocular demonstration of the power of soul force, the power of the soul." And when you stop to think about it, he leaves for South Africa to confront colonialism in 1893. Have you heard that year mentioned here earlier today? 1 month after he goes to South Africa, Swamiji comes to Chicago. Gandhi used to say that reality is a coin with 2 faces, truth on one side, nonviolence on another. I can easily imagine in some loka, Gandhiji and Vivekananda tossing that coin, and Gandhiji saying, "Oh gosh, Narayan, I'm sorry. All I have to do is take down the British Empire. You have to try to bring Vedanta to America." And Narayan, thank you. And Narayan's saying, "Well, I tell you what, I'll start a little park in California, and we can be talking about you in 130 years. So, quite apart from ending a world order, which we might call colonialism 101 or 1.0, where something like 60 countries achieved their freedom in the wake of that event. Even if that were not big enough, I think the spiritual influence of Gandhi has been even greater. This was, if you think of 1893, remember it'll just be in 2 years, December of 1985, when two cataclysmic events will happen in the West. One, Wilhelm Röntgen will give a paper which will lead to the atomic age, the discovery of what he called X-Strahlungen, X-rays. And another, which I think is even more important, that two brothers, who called the Lumière brothers, it's hard to believe that was really their name, but they for the first time showed a commercial film in Paris. So the age of mass media and the atomic age began on the same day. And that was only 2 years after these two giant figures fanned out into the West to bring the ancient perennial philosophy to a country and a civilization that needed it very badly. Go only 5 years down the line is the discovery of quantum reality. And Dr. Raja Ramana, who was the chair of the Department of Energy in India, said, "It is only the Vedanta which seems to be in a position to absorb the tremendous impact of the new science." So there's something cosmic happening here also. And let me just read you a quote from Jitatmananda in his book Holistic Science and Vedanta. He said, "What we recognize as the material universe, the universe of space and time and elementary particles and energies, is the materialization of a primal mind. In that sense, there is no waiting for consciousness to arise, it is there always. What we wait for in the evolution of life is only the culminating event, the emergence of creatures that in their self-awareness can articulate consciousness and give it a voice." And I would say we are now at an intermediate stage where a few, like Gandhiji, have carried that process to its ultimate conclusion and thus delivered the tremendous impact to the world. It was one of his opponents, Sir Stafford Cripps, you may remember him from the history of the Satyagraha movement, who said that Gandhi was the greatest Indian since Buddha and the greatest man since Jesus Christ. And now we have a language to possibly understand the central teachings of the Vedanta in terms that we are familiar with, most of us are, in the scientific West. And that can lead, I think, to a tremendous breakthrough. But I also think that that breakthrough will not happen without the final discovery that Gandhi made and delivered to the world, which is the breakthrough of nonviolence. Because nonviolence is as native to the new image of reality that we are trying to reach as violence is to the world that we live in today.
So thank you for the honor of being invited to this beautiful place. And thank you, Professor Nagler, for your remarkable reminiscence about the significance of Mahatma Gandhi and the fivefold plan to move us forward. And I'd like us to take a second to focus your gaze upon the backdrop of the stage. And if you're in the front or off to the side, take a moment to gather in the colors, to gather in the forms of all of the different flowers. And as we gather under this beautiful tent with a gentle breeze from time to time, sheltered from the hot sun, how perfect. We have everything we need, and even more, we have reminders of everything we need. I've spent a lot of time with Yoga Vasishta, And on the one hand, yeah, the world isn't real. But on the other hand, the world is all we have. We need to consistently direct and redirect. I love that this is Memorial Day. What are we supposed to do on Memorial Day? Remember. Okay. So let us use this moment to remember the earth. I love the natural carpet beneath your feet. Okay. This is the earth. To remember the waters. Feel the moisture in your mouth. Acknowledge that that crow in the distance has been taking water where it could be found, just as we do with our tea, our coffee. We make it very fancy. It sustains us. And then the power of fire, the power of the radiance of the sun. We convert it in all manner through electricity into ways to keep ourselves warm, to keep our rooms lit. But it's all that energy that this age is called Agni. And then the breeze. The breeze that brings us breath, Vayu on the outside, and prana on the inside. And then space. What a gift to this part of California, this part of the United States, that the federal government said to Swami here and said, no, you can keep it. Meditation is okay. And that was some decades ago in the early 1960s. But about 10 years ago, I wandered on this property. And I come from Southern California. And I know it's so popular to just say, oh, Southern California. But it's true, we have this, grandiose notion of vast open spaces elsewhere. And the Vedanta Society, when they speak of Olema, they just sort of glimmer and smile. And then one day I was given the gift of staying nearby and just wandering this property and feeling all of those thoughts and all of those activities that we all carry, regardless of where we live. But it's really nice to have a place that helps you to relieve all that we carry and to truly perform at least a moment of a parigraha where we can let it all go. And what has engaged my attention for the last 20 years is something that we sang, or that was sung to us at the very, very beginning from the Narayana Upanishad. And what number was remarkably significant, if you recall that sacred scripture that we heard at the beginning? 7. Okay. So I'd like us all to stand, please. And I'm going to give you, as we heard from the Narayana Upanishad, but from the Markandeya Upanishad, a way to trace, a meditation that we can carry. That we can carry as we remember both the reality and the unreality of the world. And it's coded in this amazing gift handed over to us by our parents, the human body. So first of all, and this sounds, okay, well, we will just move forward with this, but put your hands on your bottom and think a little bit. It might have happened already today, might happen tomorrow, might happen later today. And in the old days, this was treasured, gathered in the latrine, and we've learned about it from Gandhi, that this is a gift back to the earth through which we can help enrich through our own manure the very quality of the food that nourishes us. Okay, so feel the presence of earth. You've been sitting on it, and value it, and give honor every time the earth moves through your body. And then place your hands on your front and feel perhaps your bladder, feel, you've been sitting a while, some of you I'm sure like, oh, I get to relieve my bladder soon. But just reflect on the marvel of the various forms of water that move and have moved through your body. So many countless gallons. The very waters that lap against the shore of Port Reyes National Seashore, the very waters that flow through the taps, that come from the ground, that come from the snow melt. And feel that connection in your own body with the waters of the planet. And then bring your hands to your abdomen. Yeah. If you need to sit down, please sit down. Swami's reminding me that not everybody can stand. But if you're at all uncomfortable, please sit. But you can still follow this. And feel the heat, the digestive heat within your abdomen, which is the same as the heat of the sun. And then bring your hands up to your chest and inhale. Descending the diaphragm downward and the rib cage upward and forward, and then exhale. And then inhale again, feeling that wonderful prana, that wonderful breath. And then exhale. And bring your hands to your throat. And just say the simplest of syllables, just say ah. And then look at the tent and look at the people around you. And bring your right hand to your forehead and your heart and back and forth, but acknowledge all the many thoughts that we have, head and heart. And then release your hands up into space. Number 7. And then come back and you can sit again. Taking that capacity of creativity within each and every heart and bringing it moment by moment into the world, Aishvarya, through Vairagya, through replicating that equanimity so cherished by Mahatma Gandhi, through Jnana, through developing the ongoing discernment of, oh, and I'd love, turn off the television. Okay? Is any of that stuff real? No, that's the stuff that isn't real. Okay, that's the stuff that we must learn to set aside through our knowledge and wisdom. And then the fourth great quality, which is Dharma, which is to accept responsibility for our place in the world. Whether it be as a scientist, whether it be as a person of medicine, whether it be as an engineer. I mean, how could we get here without Vivekananda Bridge? Every skill is needed. The current Pope, Francis, in offering to the world Laudato Si, has given us permission worldwide, whether Muslim or Christian, whether Hindu or Buddhist, to again value the world. The world, yes, on the one hand, that world of media is not real, but the world beneath our feet is all we have. The poet Mary Oliver said, "There is only one question: how to love this world." And the Yoga Vasishta, I discovered years after we were all treated and trained inductively, meaning that we were given all of these practices to do, and it was up to us to figure out what we had done. And the one practice that we just collectively did a little bit, which is called Bhuta Shuddhi, or the dharanas on the Mahabhutas. Okay, this is what we were assigned, was 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night. The entire month of October in 1973, our job was to train our mind on the earth. And then the next month, it could have been any month, but it happened to be the month November, is that we trained our mind for 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night on the presence and the power of water. Living on Long Island, we would go down to the beach or up to Long Island Sound, or we would sit in our room with a clear glass bowl filled with water, honoring water. And then fire. The next month, 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night. It's a very powerful practice. Light a candle. And then your awareness through the day, it's like every day is Memorial Day, because you notice, oh yeah, we're using electric lights here. Or, oh yeah, there's a lot of sunshine. Or the reverse. And there becomes an intimacy with energy in that regard. And then 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night. This is also a Buddhist practice, given in the Visuddhimagga. In Buddhist tradition, this is called the 5 kasanas. And then my favorite was the month of space. Given no instruction, given no frame, and for many, many years, we would sit Sunday mornings and just gaze into the vastness of the sky for an hour. We have a very serious situation within the world, and we have a very joyous opportunity, each and every one of us, regardless of where we live, regardless of our age, regardless, we all are being called to attention, to revere and honor these great elements. Our bodies are none other than earth, water, fire, air, space. And through bringing ourselves back to the awareness of these 5, and then doing the best we can with number 6, which is our mind, launching ourselves through that collective energy into that 7th unspeakable space, into that place of spirituality, that we will be able to do what Ramana Maharshi did. We don't have to be in a cave of silence, but we can make that cave of silence for ourselves, our active selves engaged in the world, or for the monastics, by having that example of, yes, there's a world out there, but what's most important is to cultivate that inner world that will provide the mooring, the grounding. The Dalai Lama once met with the now departed Queen Mother, the mother of Queen Elizabeth II. And he said, taking her hand, he says, "I'm so glad to meet you." And this was toward the very end of her life, very toward the end of the 20th century. And you may know that she lived to be more than 100 years old. I don't know if we'll ever see King Charles. Okay, which is sort of sad because he is quite the Vedantin in his own way. But he said, "Queen Mother, you have lived through it all. You have lived through the now banned weapons of mustard gas. You have lived through the tragedy of the Nazi era, the London bombings, the Holocaust, the obliteration of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. You have lived through the Cold War." And he said, "Queen Mother, are things getting worse?" And she smiled broadly and said, "Oh, Your Holiness, no. Things are getting better." And we have learned through the example of Mahatma Gandhi, we have learned the value of each individual in doing the best that she or he can do to give witness to that highest self, to give witness to the best self that we can be.
Thank you, Professor, for that wonderful, touching presentation, highlighting the sacredness, the sublimity and beauty of nature, and also the universal spiritual values. You know, religion, as I mentioned during introduction, religion has got a very bad name, and also God. If you look at the history of religion, you find some of the bloodiest massacres and wars were fought on behalf of religion and for God. Religion, in reality, is one of the greatest gifts of God to all of us. It has produced saints and sages, mystics, great humanists. Gandhi was one of the classic examples, who practiced religion at every moment, because whether you have led your life intelligently or not can be verified by watching how you die. Gandhi was busy organizing the Indian people, fighting for the freedom, but when he was dying, he did not cry. He uttered the name of God 3 times and breathed his last. So he was living very intelligently. Every act, every word, every thought as an offering to God. So for such a man like Gandhi, every word was a sacred mantra. Every act was an act of worship. Every thought was meditation. And the whole creation, humanity, was an expression of God. I've studied Sanskrit and Upanishads when I was very small. If you read Eckhart, you find Eckhart's views of Christian experience, spiritual experience, are not different from the teachings of the Upanishadic Vedic sages. So this is a higher stage. But the highest level, we transcend, we go beyond the rituals, beyond words, beyond philosophy, beyond theology. When we reach the level of experience, then we reach a point which is stated by the ancient Vedic rishis, Indram Mitram Varunam Aktirahu Atho Divyasa Suparno Virutman Ekam Satvipravi Udha Vadanti Aknim Yamam Matirishwanamaho. It's a
statement from the earliest of Vedic literature, Rigveda Samhita. It says, all the different names of gods and goddesses in different traditions are only so many ways of looking at the same reality. Names may be different, see, depending upon the culture, the tradition, the socio-anthropological background in which a prophet is born. He will have or she will have to teach religion using the vocabulary, the language in which he is born. And also using the similes, parables, imageries, examples, illustrations linked to that particular culture into which that prophet is born. But then if you look beyond the socio-anthropological, the sociological, the cultural aspects, if you look at the core teachings, you find they're actually speaking about the same spiritual experience, but the language may be different. The way ideas are expressed may be different. So when we reach this experience dimension of religious life, you find the religion in its highest sense can be defined as universal spiritual humanism. This is Vivekananda's concept of universal religion in a nutshell.
Om Anuraniyan Mahato Maniyan Atma Guhayam Nihitosya Janto